Have you ever finished a game and just sat there staring at the screen, not knowing what to do next, like something inside you changed? That's what this list is about. These aren't just good games. These are the games that stay with you, the ones you randomly think about years later, the ones that made you feel something real. Some made us emotional, some completely blew our minds, and some reminded us why we fell in love with gaming in the first place. So if you call yourself a gamer, trust me, these are the games you need to experience at least once before you die. Gaming has given us thousands of amazing titles over the years, but only a few feel perfect. Not because they're flawless, but because of how they make you feel while playing them. That feeling of being completely lost in another world, forgetting everything around you. That's exactly what this list is about. And honestly, starting this list with any game other than this one would feel wrong. Disco Elysium was one of those games that completely caught me off guard. At first, I thought it was just another RPG, maybe something slow and dialogue heavy. But within an hour, I realized I was playing something truly different. This game doesn't impress you with action or flashy moments. It pulls you in with its world, its writing, and the strange feeling that every choice actually matters. You're not just controlling a character here, you're almost rebuilding a broken person piece by piece. Every conversation feels personal, every decision feels heavy. And somehow, a game with mostly talking made me more emotionally invested than most action games ever could. By the time I finished it, I genuinely felt like I'd lived another life. That's how powerful this game is. And trust me, if this is how we're starting the list, it only gets crazier from here.
Barricades during the coalition landings. The story goes that he rode it on the last night of his life, keeping watch from the barricades in the middle of the night. I don't have the whole thing committed to memory, but there's a line in it I think about sometimes.
Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice is one of those games that humbles you almost immediately. I still remember my first few hours with it, getting destroyed over and over again, questioning whether I was even good at games anymore. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it so special. Sekiro doesn't care about your ego. It forces you to learn, adapt, and earn every single victory. But then something clicks. Your hands start moving without thinking, your timing gets sharper, and suddenly every sword fight feels less like combat and more like a dance. The sound of steel clashing, the pressure of one mistake ending everything, and that insane rush when you finally beat a boss that's been destroying you for hours. It's unmatched. I've played a lot of difficult games, but very few made me feel this level of satisfaction. Sekiro doesn't just test your skill, it teaches you patience, and somehow makes you stronger by breaking you first. Outer Wilds is one of those rare games that I wish I could completely erase from my memory, just so I could experience it for the first time all over again. It starts off feeling simple, almost innocent. You get in a tiny spaceship, fly into space and think, okay, let's explore. But the deeper you go, the more this game quietly pulls you in. Every planet hides a mystery. Every discovery makes you more curious, and before you realize it, you're completely obsessed with finding answers. What hit me the hardest was the feeling of loneliness and wonder at the same time. Floating alone in space, hearing only your ship and the distant sounds of the universe. It felt weirdly peaceful, but also emotional. And when all the pieces of the story finally started connecting, I just sat there in silence. Outer Wilds isn't just a game you play. It's an experience you carry with you long after the credits roll. Hades completely changed the way I look at roguelikes. Usually, in games like this, dying feels frustrating. In Hades, weirdly enough, dying made me want to play even more. Every failed run somehow felt like progress. You'd come back stronger, learn something new, hear fresh dialogue, and suddenly, one more run turns into 3 more hours. But what really surprised me was how attached I got to the world and its characters. I went in expecting fast combat, and yes, the combat is incredible. Smooth, chaotic, ridiculously satisfying, but I didn't expect to care this much about everyone in the House of Hades. Every conversation made the world feel more alive. Every victory felt personal. And the first time I escaped after so many failed attempts, that feeling was unreal. Hades somehow turns repetition into addiction, and that's a kind of magic very few games can pull off. And somehow, we're only getting started. The next game on this list is another unforgettable masterpiece. Bloodborne is one of those games that doesn't welcome you. It challenges you from the very first step. I still remember walking into that dark, gothic city for the first time and just feeling uneasy, like I didn't belong there. Everything is hostile, everything feels wrong, and the game never really explains itself. You just learn by getting destroyed over and over again. But the strange part is, the more it punishes you, the more you respect it. Every fight feels like survival, not action. Every enemy encounter keeps you alert, like your life depends on it. And when you finally start learning the rhythm, when you stop panicking and start reacting, it feels like something inside you switches. The atmosphere in Bloodborne is unmatched. That eerie silence, the haunting design, the constant pressure, it all builds this feeling that you're stuck in a nightmare you somehow chose to enter. And yet, I kept going back. Because every small victory felt like I earned it in blood. Hollow Knight is one of those games that looks simple at first, but the moment you step into its world, you realize how deep it actually goes. I remember just wandering around this quiet, empty kingdom, not really knowing where I was supposed to go, and somehow that confusion felt right. The world doesn't hold your hand at all. It just lets you explore, get lost, and slowly piece things together on your own. And the more you explore, the more emotional it starts to feel. There's something really lonely about it, but in a beautiful way. The music, the atmosphere, the tiny details in every area. It all builds this strange feeling like you're discovering a forgotten story that no one is telling you directly, and then the combat hits you. Simple at first, but later, it demands real focus and timing. Every boss fight feels personal, like a test of everything you've learned so far. Hollow Knight is the kind of game that doesn't shout for attention, but once it has you, it never really lets you go. Persona 5, Royal feels like stepping into a completely different life the moment you start it. I remember thinking I'd just play it for an hour or two, and then suddenly I'm deep into a world that feels more alive than I expected. There's something special about how this game mixes everyday life with this hidden world you slowly uncover. One moment, you're just living a normal student life, going to school, talking to people, building your routine. And the next moment, you're diving into this surreal, stylish world where everything feels intense and meaningful. What really stayed with me was the bond you build with the characters. It doesn't feel like side content, it feels like real connections growing over time. And the music, it just sticks in your head in a way that makes even simple moments feel important. Persona 5, Royal isn't just about fighting or story. It's about living a double life that slowly becomes something you don't want to leave.
Let it in like this. Isn't it?
Resident Evil 4 is one of those games that instantly pulls you into tension from the very first village. I still remember stepping in and feeling like something was off, like I was not safe for even a single second. The way enemies slowly surround you, the way every bullet suddenly feels valuable, it all builds this constant pressure that never really goes away. But what makes it so memorable is how balanced it is between fear and action. One moment you're panicking because you're low on ammo, and the next moment you're holding your ground in a fight that feels almost cinematic. It's stressful, but in the best possible way. And then there's that feeling when you finally survive a brutal section with barely any health left. It hits different. Resident Evil 4 doesn't just try to scare you, it keeps you locked in that tension where every step feels important, and that's what makes it so unforgettable. Metal Gear. Solid 3. Snake Eater is one of those games that feels less like a game and more like a full cinematic experience you're actually inside of. I remember starting it and instantly feeling like I had stepped into something serious, something emotional, not just action-based. You're dropped into this wild jungle with almost nothing, and the game slowly teaches you how to survive, how to move quietly, how to think before acting. But what really stayed with me wasn't just the stealth or the missions. It was the story underneath it all. There's this strange mix of tension and emotion running through everything, especially as you start to understand the characters and their loyalty, their pain, and their choices. Even simple moments like healing yourself or hiding from enemies feel grounded and real. And by the time the story starts unfolding fully, it doesn't feel like you're just playing a soldier. It feels like you're living through something heavy, something meaningful. Snake Eater is not just about stealth, it's about sacrifice, and it leaves a mark on you long after you stop playing. Journey is one of those games that feels almost too simple when you first start it. But the more you play, the more it quietly gets under your skin. There are no words, no complex systems, no long explanations. Just you, a vast desert, and this strange feeling that you're heading towards something important. I remember moving through the sand, watching the wind, listening to that soft music that somehow fits every step perfectly. And then something unexpected happens. You meet another player. No names, no talking, just movement and connection. And somehow that silence feels more powerful than most conversations in games. You don't even realize it at first, but you start caring about that stranger beside you. Helping them, following them, losing them, finding them again. Journey isn't about winning or losing, it's about feeling something real in a very quiet way. And when it ends, it doesn't feel like finishing a game. It feels like waking up from a dream you didn't want to leave. Celeste is one of those games that looks like a simple platformer at first, but the moment you start playing it, you realize it's saying something much deeper. I remember struggling just to get through the early levels, falling again and again, and thinking I might not even finish it. But the game never feels unfair. It just keeps pushing you to try one more time. And that's exactly what it's trying to teach you. Every jump, every climb, every impossible-looking section slowly becomes manageable if you just don't give up. What really stayed with me, though, is how personal it feels. It's not just about reaching the top of the mountain. It feels like you're climbing through your own doubts at the same time. The music, the atmosphere, even the small quiet moments between challenges all add this emotional weight that's hard to explain. And when you finally push through something that felt impossible just minutes ago, the satisfaction hits differently. Celeste isn't just about skill. It's about persistence and proving to yourself that you can keep going even when it gets hard. Dead Space is one of those games that doesn't even try to make you comfortable for a single second. I still remember stepping onto the Ishimura for the first time and instantly feeling that something was wrong. The silence hits first. That heavy, empty kind of silence where you're waiting for something to jump out at any moment. And when it finally does, it's not just a scare, it's panic. What makes Dead Space so intense is how helpless you feel at the start, slowly learning how to survive with limited resources, tight corridors, and enemies that never play fair. Every sound feels like a warning, every shadow feels like a threat. But at the same time, there's this strange satisfaction when you start handling situations better, when you stop panicking and start controlling the chaos. The game doesn't rely on cheap scares. It builds tension so well that even walking through an empty hallway feels stressful. And honestly, that feeling of constant unease is what makes it so unforgettable. It stays in your head long after you stop playing.
Fan replacement complete.
Fallout. New Vegas is one of those games that doesn't really push you in a single direction. It just drops you into a broken world and says, go figure it out yourself. I remember stepping out into the wasteland for the first time and just feeling completely free. No strict path, no right answer, just choices everywhere. And the crazy part is, every decision actually feels like it matters. Who you help, who you betray, what side you take, it all starts shaping your version of this world. What really stuck with me is how alive the wasteland feels despite being so empty. Every town has stories, every character has opinions, and nothing ever feels black and white. Even simple conversations can completely change how things unfold later. And that's what makes New Vegas so special. It's not about being a hero or a villain, it's about being you in a world that constantly reacts to your decisions. By the time I really got deep into it, it didn't feel like I was following a story anymore. It felt like I was writing it myself.
Get him off!
Control is one of those games that feels strange from the very first minute, like you've walked into a place you were never supposed to find. I remember stepping into that building and just feeling lost in a good way. Everything looks normal at first, but nothing actually is. The rooms shift, the rules don't make sense, and the deeper you go, the more you start questioning what's real and what isn't. What really pulled me in was how powerful you slowly become over time. At the start, you're just trying to survive and understand what's happening. But later, you're throwing objects through the air, reshaping fights completely, and just feeling unstoppable in the middle of all that chaos. And yet, even with all that power, the world still feels bigger than you. Control has this weird balance of mystery and intensity that keeps you locked in every second. It's confusing, it's stylish, and honestly, it's one of those games that makes you want to keep exploring just to understand a little more of what's going on. Alan Wake 2 is one of those games that feels like you're stuck inside a nightmare that keeps changing while you're still in it. I remember playing it and constantly feeling unsure of what was real and what wasn't. The atmosphere is heavy in a way that's hard to explain. It's not just scary, it feels psychological, like the game is playing with your thoughts more than just trying to surprise you. Every scene feels cinematic, almost like you're watching a dark movie, but you're also trapped inside it. What really stayed with me is how the story keeps twisting between reality and fiction, making you question everything you just saw. One moment you think you understand what's happening, and the next moment everything shifts again. Even simple exploration feels tense because you never know what's waiting around the corner. Alan Wake 2 isn't just about horror or action. It's about confusion, mystery, and that uneasy feeling that something is always watching you. It stays in your head long after you stop playing, like a story you can't fully escape. Prince of Persia. The Sands of Time is the kind of game that feels like a memory you can actually play. I remember starting it and instantly getting pulled into this adventure that feels simple on the surface, but so smooth and magical once you really get into it. The movement alone feels special. Climbing walls, jumping across impossible gaps, and that feeling of flow where everything just clicks perfectly. But what really makes it unforgettable is the time mechanic. The ability to rewind mistakes changes everything. Instead of getting frustrated, you just fix your mistake and keep going, like time itself is on your side. And then there's the story. It feels like a classic adventure tale, something timeless, with this strong sense of destiny running through it. By the end, it doesn't feel like you just finished a game. It feels like you lived through an old legend that you somehow got to control. And that's the thing about all these games. They don't just entertain you for a few hours, they stay with you. If I'm being honest, this whole list just reminds me why I love gaming in the first place. Every game here gave me something different. Some tested my patience, some hit me emotionally, and some just pulled me into worlds I didn't want to leave. And now I want to know from you, which one of these games hit you the hardest? Or is there a game you think deserves to be on this list that I missed? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to see your picks.